her insight on metaverse and international dispute resolution. So this is an important topic for all of us in the conflict resolution industry as we navigate through AI processes like ChatGPT, which is replacing humans, and technology is taking over the world and impact law as well. So Ms. Elizabeth, I would like to tell more about Ms. Elizabeth. She's published several articles and papers on metaverse-related disputes. And today's discussion will be based on one of her recent papers on metaverse-related disputes resolved by blockchain arbitration under the New York Convention. The article has won the Taipei Arbitration and Mediation Conference to 2020's Call for Papers. Ms. Chan would also share her experiences with the different metaverse world, the types of disputes that might arise in the metaverse context, different mechanisms of dispute resolution, and the challenges of enforcement. So without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Ms. Elizabeth Chan to our virtual stage. Ms. Elizabeth, we are thrilled to have you with us today and look forward to your insights on the world of metaverse and dispute resolution. So throughout this webinar, we encourage all the participants to raise your questions in the chat box, and we'll be taking up the questions as and when the speaker is willing to, as well as we'll also take up these questions in the last 15 minutes of the session. So Ms. Elizabeth, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Sunayana, and thank you so much to Tariq as well, and the IAMC Hyderabad for the opportunity to present here. It's great to see so many of you. I really hope that today will be a fun and interactive session. So please feel free to turn your mics on, turn your videos on, and I'll be asking lots of questions because I think this is a really new and exciting topic for many of us, and I want to learn from you as much as I want to share my experiences as well. So I'm now going to share the screen for my presentation. And I'm going to play slideshow. Okay, could you just confirm you can see that, Sunayana?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, great. I may, if there are comments in the chat, I may need you to read them out to me because
absolutely. I'll do that. Yeah.
Okay. So the title of my presentation is Marvels of the Metaverse and Dispute Resolution. I wanted to comment on this first because I actually called it mayhem in the metaverse before, and I was talking to a friend who works at an IT company that develops the metaverse, and she was saying, oh, I think mayhem gives it this like negative connotation. Actually, there's so many interesting use cases of the metaverse, and I think that's a really good point. Like if we think about how marvelous the metaverse is, we can start imagining the opportunities that it presents for us. Although I would also say that it can probably introduce a little mayhem as well. So what are we going to do today? So first of all, I'd really like to do some introductions. I'd like to learn who you are, and I'd like to introduce myself to you as well. Second, I want to talk about the metaverse. You know, what is it? Are we in it? Be interested to see what your thoughts are as well. Third, I'm going to share with you my experience in the metaverse. You know, I am not a tech person, I'm a lawyer, but I've become really interested in the intersection between law and international dispute resolution. And I want to show you some photos of spending my time in the metaverse with other like-minded lawyers who are interested in the same thing. And then fourth, we will turn to disputes. You know, what types of disputes might we see in relation to the metaverse? What types of dispute resolution mechanisms might we see? We can talk a little bit about blockchain arbitration, and if we have time, we can talk a little bit about AI, although AI is not necessarily linked to the metaverse, as Sunayana mentioned, with ChatGPT and other AI bots. We need to think about technology in a holistic sense, so I'm very interested as well. and how you are all using AI in your study or your practices. And then finally, we can look at some enforcement challenges. So issues under the New York Convention, in particular, where you have arbitral awards, which are rendered under by way of blockchain arbitration. So, as Sunayana mentioned, my name is Lizzie. She told you that I'm a lawyer with lots of experience in international arbitration, but of course, that's only one part of who I am. There's the Lizzie that you see here on screen. And then there is the Lizzie that you see on LinkedIn. I post a lot about the things that I'm interested, like tech and gender diversity. There is the Lizzie that is a mom to a toddler and a wife and a daughter-in-law. There is the Lizzie who's on Instagram and Facebook. Actually, there's many different Lizzies out there, and I'm sure you'll all understand that we all have different identities in the metaverse. And one of the really exciting things about the metaverse is that you participate in it as an avatar, and that avatar can be anyone or even anything that you want. So I've included 4 pictures of myself here. Actually, this is my husband's creation of me. So this is what he thinks I look like, which I think is actually quite flattering and I'm better looking than who I am in real life. But the very cool thing is that you can change your face color, you can change your hairstyle or hair color, you can choose your clothes. So one moment I can be wearing my glasses, another moment I can be wearing a bright yellow suit. I have to confess, I've never worn a bright yellow suit before, but in the metaverse you can be anyone you want, right? And the interesting thing is, of course, you can change your avatar anytime. I'll show you later when I look at different platforms, you can change your avatar between platforms, and actually on different platforms you may be constrained in some ways anyway. So for example, when I put on my Oculus Quest 2 goggles and I create an avatar for accessing Oculus apps, I have to be human. But if any of you participated or watched the Meta's relaunch Facebook's launch as Meta, you will have seen that Andrew Bosworth, the chief technical officer of Meta, turned up as a robot. So really in the metaverse, you can be anybody and whatever you want. And this can have, as I'll talk about later, some interesting implications for legal practice. I wanted to get this poll to work, but I don't think it's going to. So my first poll question, sorry, it's disappeared now, and I'll pause this for a moment, is how would you describe the metaverse? So it would be great, feel free to turn your cameras on or just write in the chat. What is the metaverse? Anybody want to have a go? Or Sunayana, do you want to have a go? How would you describe the metaverse?
Just maybe something to do with AI.
Okay, and something to do with AI. Okay, there's an alternate truth. iPad has their hand up as well. What do you think it is?
Hi, thank you, Elizabeth. I think we can't turn our videos on just yet, so somebody could look into that. But I think the meta makes the internet, places of the internet, things that you can see and touch more than you could before. Like from moving to a chat room where you talk to somebody, now in the metaverse, I can go and shake your hand in your avatar, which is quite cool.
Yes, that's a great point. Oh, sorry, Sunayana, can you look into the video issue? Yeah. It seems like the participants can't turn the videos on.
Yeah.
We've got some other great suggestions in the chat as well. It's an alternate truth. It's digital space using virtual reality, Metaverse can be a parallel universe of the real world, only in online and intangible fictional world and virtual space. These are all great definitions, and honestly, there's actually no agreed definition of what the metaverse is. One definition I like to use is just to call it the internet in 3D, which covers many of the concepts that many of you have just covered. But actually, we like the metaverse has kind of entered mainstream lexicon in the last couple of years, but it's not a new idea. So I think the term was first used in the 1970s in a book called Snow Crash, and it talked about the metaverse. But the metaverse, I like to think of it really as, you know, many people being able to have a synchronous experience online through 3D together. So, you know, that's already existed for a long time, particularly in the gaming industry. So I think South Korea came out with one of the first games, maybe it was called Nexon something, you know, like you've got like multiplayer games and people are being able to play it all at the same time. And then you've got things like, you know, and if any of you have seen Ready Player One or read Ready Player One, the metaverse features large and basically everybody's lives. Like everybody dons these goggles and these suits and they do everyday things in the metaverse. And actually this metaverse is run by a corporation or at least a particular individual, and it ends up providing a lot of, you know, public goods that nation states are not able to. So for example, public education, and you know, we've seen things like Second Life, for example, where, you know, people interacted in virtual worlds, and now you have virtual worlds in the form of like Roblox, and many young people play Roblox, and you know, even in Hong Kong there's like a metaverse MTR station, like the Tube station, that's online, created by the Sandbox. There's Decentraland, like lots of different places that provide these virtual world experiences where you can go in there and you can perform. For example, the rapper Travis, I forget his last name, you know, presented this like this performance to, you know, I think hundreds of millions of people all at the same time. You know, I've been asked before, you know, is our Zoom conversation now, does that mean we're part of the metaverse? Is the metaverse even here yet? So these definitional questions are important and as yet unanswered. Oh, sorry, I think there's a hand up from Samsung, SME2.
Yes, thought I wouldn't interrupt. So we have, can you please rename yourself? Or just tell us your name and then you can start.
Samsung SME2, could you tell us, do you want to make a comment and introduce yourself as well? Okay, well, let's give Samsung some time and come back if they still have the comment. So let me return to my presentation. We're here, as I mentioned, there's no, you know, singular agreed definition, but one definition that I like to work with is provided by Matthew Ball, who is an investor, and he's also written a very good book called The Metaverse and How It Will Revolutionize Everything. And he sees it as having several elements which were talked about already. So it needs to be massively scaled, like involving lots and lots of people. It needs to be part of an interoperable network. Interoperability refers to you know, a seamless experience across different virtual worlds. So to give a concrete example, when you wear a pair of Nike shoes in real life, in physical life, and you walk into an Adidas store, you know, your Nike shoes still look like Nike shoes, like them in their original form, and you can actually, and they still work. You can still wear them as shoes in the Adidas store, but that's not necessarily true in virtual worlds where, for example, you might have a particular pair of shoes in one world, and then when you go to another world, maybe those shoes look different, or maybe they wouldn't even work. So for example, when I go try out these different virtual worlds, I might be one avatar, but in a different program, I have to create a new avatar. I can't bring my old one over. I guess you could think of it like a movie. You can't put Winnie the Pooh in the Lord of the Rings movie, for example. It might be very, very different. So interoperability across virtual worlds has not yet been achieved. Now, real-time rendered 3D. So that's how we are engaging now, but in virtual reality. And I think someone mentioned that you can clap or give each other a high five in the metaverse. So experience synchronously and persistently. So that's all of us having the same experience at the same time, with an individual sense of presence. So, all of us, participate in our individual capacities by an effectively unlimited number of users. So that's, everybody in the whole world theoretically could use it at the same time, but with continuity of data, like your identity, your history, your entitlements to NFTs or other virtual sets, for example. Now, by this definition, then we have not yet achieved the metaverse. For example, the metaverse or the metaverses, the virtual worlds, are not as yet fully interoperable. The metaverse and metaverses are not yet accessible by an effectively unlimited number of users. So there are many so for example, when I organized a meeting in the metaverse for Paris Arbitration Week, we were only able to accommodate 16 avatars around a table. It would be the same with the Zoom call. I'm not sure what license that IAMC is using, but you might be limited to say 100 users per call or 300 users per call. So that's actually limited. So and things like real-time rendered 3D is really exciting when it works, but it actually also lags, takes a long time to work. So that is to say that we still need a lot of computing power to make it possible to access the metaverse. And actually, my next question for you all is about whether you all own a pair of virtual goggles. But for those who do own a pair of virtual goggles and do play around with virtual goggles, you'll actually realize that it's really heavy. If you wear it for, if I wear mine for over 30 minutes, it gets really heavy and actually quite uncomfortable. So it's still not easy. I think not easy for everybody to use the metaverse in long stretches, for example. So my next question is, and I'll stop sharing again, and you can please just use the raise hand function. Who here owns?
I think even the video is enabled right now, so whoever has to speak, they can switch on their videos and audio.
Okay, cool. Well, my next question is, who here owns a pair of virtual reality goggles?
I don't.
No worries. If you do, raise your hand. It'd be interesting to see. Interesting. So actually, it looks like I am the
only
person.
one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm the only person who owns a pair of virtual goggles. Okay. So, I mean, that I think goes to show how difficult it is so far still to mainstream something like the metaverse, and why so often we kind of relegate it to something for the gamers and not for lawyers. But you'll see from my next set of slides that it's actually really fun to own a pair of goggles and to experience all of the different apps and virtual worlds available. Here. So the next set of slides, I'm going to show you my own journey through the metaverse from January 2022, so January last year until now. So how it all happened was my husband had bought a pair of goggles which he said were for research. So he's an investor and he's really interested in tech. And then he really enjoyed the experience and said, hey, you should try these goggles. And I was like, okay. And I was really amazed by how good it was. So I put on the goggles and I could use the controllers, and I picked up an airplane, which of course didn't actually exist, but I could pick it up and then I could fly it across the room, which was really cool. And then I had a meeting with my husband where he appeared as an avatar, and I was just amazed that there was this avatar that was speaking and kind of looked like him and had the same hand gestures. And so from that, I wanted to try this myself, and also like it's more fun to have other people. So I made my first friend in the metaverse. His name is Paul. He's a lawyer in the US and in London. And this is a picture of the two of us in the same room. We actually had like this, like all these photos will make it seem really easy, but we had things like, would be sitting on the floor, for example, instead of sitting on a chair because we couldn't quite figure out how to sit on the chair. And as you see, we only had our torsos at that stage. So I organized the first virtual reality arbitration gathering, and there were probably about 10 people there, which was really fun. So this is a picture that shows you what it looked like in real life, where I was wearing my goggles, and then here, what it looks like me in the metaverse. Now, this is the room where we held the conference. So as you'll see, much like this Zoom video, people could join by video link as well. And then, I decorated the room with the poster, and there's a blackboard that you can write on. The technology and the decorations has actually improved a lot since I played with this back in January. So when you log on now, you actually have your own personal office, which is like a really beautiful room. Sunayana, I just wanted to ask if you were able to get those videos to work through my website.
And I'll just check.
Okay. So I'm not able to show you, I just wanted to show, yeah. I might just have to show you the images at this stage because I haven't been able to get it working on my. So I just wanted to show you. Oh, this one doesn't seem to have everything. Oh, right, maybe it's down here. Let me see. Okay, so this is a picture of what it was like to sit in the conference room during Paris Arbitration Week last year. And these were 16 avatars around a table, people that I had not met before. And the amazing thing was I really felt like I was presenting to a group of people who were standing around me. And the technology is such that the person who sat next to me, their voice would be louder than would be the person who sat on the other side of the room. So I thought it did a really good job of mimicking real life. Okay, I think I see a question. Okay, I'm unable to use the video from the words. Okay, no worries. Don't worry about the video. So, so that was Paris Arbitration Week. So I did another presentation to Metaverse Thursdays, which some of you may be part of, which is a group of women who meet regularly on Thursdays. So we did another presentation in the metaverse, and I was joined by 3 friends, which was a lot of fun. And as you see, we were actually able to connect our laptops. Another experience was Alt Space VR. So we all went to this camping ground, and you'll see us all holding our hands out because we were all trying to roast marshmallows, actually. So you could like pick up a stick and put a marshmallow on it and then hold it over a virtual fire. I know a lot of this sounds a little bit crazy, but it's really a pretty amazing experience when you try it. And I should explain as well, like, who are all these other people who are going to the metaverse with me? Or I'm hoping you're asking how you can join us. So I'm part of a group called Metaverse Legal, who are lawyers who are interested in the metaverse. And we gather together and we try different metaverse apps every month. So these are the pictures from those experiences. So this is another example of an event that we held in the metaverse, and it was really cool because we were trying to bridge the generational divide, like the idea that older people don't like to use technology or are not familiar with it. So here we bought goggles for Toby Landau and Dana McGrath as part of the Young Eco Mentoring Program. So, and there they are, and it was really cool. As up till that point, I had appeared before Toby, but I'd never sat so close to him before. And there's Dana, of course, whom I had worked together through Arbitration Women, but I had not met her before in person at that time.
Okay.
So this is in October 2022, we visited another metaverse world called Spatial. And so some friends and I, we met in the Vogue Fashion Gallery, where you'll see those really cool images around the wall. And then you'll see here, you could create avatars that actually resemble your real person. So for example, like you'll see this one, like this is my friend Katya. I think she must have used her own photograph to do this, but this is what she looks like. And then, someone else chose this amazing angel costume. And then at the bottom here, this was the Dubai Chambers penthouse. So you could go and hang out with people, get a drink, go for a walk, you can like go upstairs onto the rooftop. It's actually a really incredible experience when you are there. These are these incredibly beautiful spaces, and the world is such that, it's 4D, it really feels real. You can sit down and touch things. So it's really a pretty incredible experience. So we went for another trip to AltSpace VR, and this was an app where you can actually create your own world. So here, my friend has actually created this world. So she created these patches of grass and the animals. And I can't play you the video, but basically my favorite app when we went to AltSpace VR was to try this Disneyland that someone had recreated based on their childhood memories of Disneyland. And so I went on a railway ride with Mickey Mouse and Goofy. I went onto a boat, which was Aladdin's boat, and there was a cave with like a genie in a bottle, and you had to find the bottle in order to find the genie. So it was really fun, and it was really cool to experience these worlds that are created by other people. So as you're thinking about disputes, maybe in the future someone is offering this really cool virtual service and you have to pay to use it, and there could be a dispute if for whatever reason you're dissatisfied with the service. Now in November, we tried the AltSpace VR app again, and this time in creator mode. One of my friends was teaching us how to create stuff. So we could make little huts, we could make little like buckets. And someone made, as you'll see in the top left-hand corner, someone made a giant croissant, and then wasn't actually able to remove it. I thought it was pretty funny. So this one, we tried Immerse, which is another conferencing center. It was a little more limited because what you could do on the free version was a little limited, but the spaces were really cool. So you can imagine, imagine if you could hold a conference anywhere and you could basically create the space that you want, your dream space. It's fantastic. So again, these videos I can't show you, but my favorite metaverse world that I traveled to was called Glue. You can see snippets in there. Basically, it was this amazing conference facility where, one room they had this huge projector screen and loads of space. And then there was loads of space outdoors as well, where you could, hang out on some grass and talk to people. And there were other really beautiful spaces where you could sit around with lots of colorful chairs and, have a moment to yourself if you wanted. And then this is another trip, my most recent trip that we did to VR chat. I mean, this was really special because the world that you see here was actually created by my friend, whom I'll be interviewing actually on a webinar in a couple of weeks, in 2 weeks. And she created this metaverse world for a client who, I think she lived in Hong Kong, but she wanted a space online that would reflect some of the environments that she grew up in. So she wanted there to be some desert, for example, and she wanted this to be a really calm space. And so we traveled to the space, and it was really beautiful. Like there's some elements which were like the desert, and then some really beautiful architectural pieces. And then like another space where you could sit and meditate while listening to calm music and be showered by golden stars. So it was very cool. So actually that takes me to where I am now, like my own metaverse experience. And I just want to stop there for a second to see if anybody had any questions or comments. And I asked because like many people get a lot out of this first part of the presentation where I make concrete what this abstract idea of the metaverse is. Feel free to use the chat. Okay, Ata?
Hello, I'm Ata from Turkey, studying in Germany now. I had a question about you can create any place you wanted in Metaverse, but so there are architects and they have IP rights. And if you're influenced by a real building, the real buildings inside, wouldn't it violate the IP rights of the person who designed it in the real life?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I'm not an IP lawyer myself, but IP issues I think are rife in the metaverse because every aspect of the metaverse is designed, like every blade of grass that you walk on belongs, like is artwork created by somebody. I would have thought that the existing principles of IP law would probably be extended to these metaverse worlds. I guess you can copyright things in the metaverse in the same way as you would do like a building design that you do in the real world. But I just flag it's not my area, but it's definitely an issue that could arise.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody else have any reactions? Like, is it weird? Is it cool? Like, could you imagine having a hearing in the metaverse? Any comments? No worries, everybody can.
So I have a question. Sorry, and this is just me wondering out loud. But is there a way in which we can use the metaverse in like expanding access to justice in the sense that, public courtrooms are open for everyone and there isn't a fee per se for using it versus an arbitration hall or a hearing? And are there common spaces of that nature that could be used for dispute resolution in the metaverse?
Yeah, my answer would be why not? So there's news reporting of a court in Colombia which has used the metaverse to hold an actual court hearing. I haven't been able to find out too many details about what they used. And you'd have to find some way where everybody would have access to the goggles. But I think that's pretty cool. And the Dubai International Arbitration Center has also announced that it's built a metaverse platform where people can resolve the issues using alternative dispute resolution in that platform. So again, I've written to the Dubai International Arbitration Center to ask for more information. So I understand that hopefully there'll be public access to it in a while. To your question about whether it will promote public accessibility, I'm not sure it would yet, because just making sure that you get all the equipment and everything to access the metaverse is still quite far away. But if you have read Ready Player One, and if we ever were to get to a stage where the technology really becomes ubiquitous, then why not? Like, so for example, in Ready Player One, the corporation behind the Oasis, which is this kind of like huge virtual reality world where everybody lives, it provides schools, for example, and they can provide really high quality schools virtually to an unlimited number of students. They can scale really quickly, right? It's not as expensive. Like, I mean, up to a point, after a point, it's not that expensive to add one more student to a virtual classroom. So my question is, like, why not in the future?
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
That's a great question. And actually, that brings me to the next part of my presentation, which is about the potential metaverse applications. So we've talked already about education, like the idea that you can use virtual reality if we're going to school or learning things. So, I have a son who's a toddler. It would be really cool if we went to school and he could like visit ancient China, and like walk the Great Wall instead of just looking at pictures of it on the internet. Or imagine if students are learning about what's it like to be an astronaut in space. What if you actually got to put on your goggles and experience being a metaverse, an astronaut floating in space, or or like doing some kind of experiment. Oh yeah, okay. So someone also said, I believe thinking loudly using metaverse or arbitration hearings is possible if parties consent to it. It's like any other piece of technology if the parties consent to it. Yeah, definitely. It's really cool. Okay, I think I see. Nitya?
Yes. Hi. So my question, should I go ahead with my question, or I think we were on a brief? Okay. So my
please.
question is, okay, so I'm relatively new to understanding metaverse and the whole Web3 technology, and from what I understand, generally blockchain is metaverse is based on blockchain, and it's more data regarding data privacy and security issues. It's more secure, but I mean, I'm not very convinced, because somewhere there has to be some sort of information security issues that may come up. So do you have any comments on that? I'm sorry, my video is not currently working. I'm somewhere in a very this thing, so maybe I'm just on the audio, so excuse me for that. Yeah,
it's a great question. So first of all, I would distinguish between blockchain and the metaverse. They're interrelated concepts, but they're not the same. So blockchain is a form of technology where you basically like use like blocks of data, kind of like a big spreadsheet, to create, like to record transactions in a way that makes it immutable. Like the idea is that you can't change it. And so like blockchain is really powerful because it becomes sort of like a ledger that's both publicly accessible, verified publicly, and that can't be changed. And then as to your question about cyber, like security, so like maybe that would come up in the context, like say you wanted to have an arbitration hearing and you wanted to make sure that there weren't any uninvited non-participants joining your hearing. I guess you would just have to put in place protocols to make sure that it didn't happen. So maybe you'd have to have like PIN codes or something to get into the room. I'm not seeing this happen. And like, I think when I read about the Colombian court, I think the court did have some kind of security measures in place. But, I still, like, based on what I have experienced anyway, I'm not sure we're quite at the stage where, we're all going to go in and like present exhibits and do cross-examination. Like, I don't think the technology is quite there, is there yet. But I think even now we're already grappling with cybersecurity issues. Sorry, Nitya?
No, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. Please continue. Yeah, I
That
thought.
was like just my thinking aloud on these issues as well.
I see. So basically what I mean, from what I also understand, that currently document management and, that kind of stuff will still can still not be done through Metaverse. Metaverse is only for the hearing part of the arbitration, right?
I think I would be not so definitive as that. So I would say that with document storage options, I don't know why you would store things in the meta. Like it's not like I can't think of any apps right now which are really designed for that. Whereas there's lots of other applications, like companies like Opus 2 or like Dropbox.
Right.
Or, other like cloud computing and things like that, which are really good for storing documents. I'm not sure if you would go to the metaverse. Insofar as your question is about like what would we use the metaverse for in relation to arbitration, but at this stage, like for me, the focus on the metaverse is really about the 3D technology. So I think hearings is a natural, like a natural use of the metaverse. So it's been kind of like Zoom, right? Except that instead of just seeing your heads and shoulders, you could see everyone and you could like sit around a table, and it would actually much more closely imitate a real life experience of being in a hearing room than Zoom does. Thank you for your question. And I think Aha, you've got your hand up as well.
We also have another question in the chat box, Lizzy.
Okay, cool. Why don't I handle Atta's first, and then I'll take the question.
Okay. I cannot open camera now, so I had a question which can be connected as the previous connection, as like Zoom and Metaverse, like you wear your glasses, you see that person as avatar, but you don't see surrounding people and surrounding things. So may this affect the confidentiality, especially in international commercial arbitration, in a way that harms than the normal traditional way?
So I think I need to clarify your first part. So if you're in the metaverse with other people, you might see that, like, if you and I and Sunayana were in a room, would like see all three of us. And but as for the sorry, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
No, why don't you elaborate?
Okay, so the thing, yeah, we see each other, but we don't see in the real life who is sitting around this person.
Yes. Like, yes, yeah, they're like you would sit around, like, for example, at a table.
If I may pitch in.
Okay. Yeah.
I think what he's trying to say is that only the participants who have access to the virtual goggles, like you mentioned, only those and those who have the avatars will be visible. So if I have a virtual goggle and I'm sitting, I'm on my laptop, or, I'm accessing Metaverse, but there's somebody sitting besides me who doesn't have an avatar and doesn't have virtual goggle. So he can, is in a way part of the proceedings. So yeah, it loses the confidentiality there. Is that right?
Okay. Got it. I had let us know if that was correct. If you want to make a comment, yeah, I get that. Yeah, and that's a good point. I suppose if we were ever to have an arbitration hearing in the metaverse, you would need some way to work around that. But I think we already have that kind of issue, right? Even with Zoom hearings, and the way that that's being managed is, for example, you might have to install cameras where the witness is, so you can see that they're not surrounded or assisted by other people. But yeah, I think it would be a problem. One person is accessing my metaverse. I have to tell you though, whoever is sitting next to the person with goggles is going to have a really boring time if they can't see what's going on. Okay, so if we have a couple of comments in the chat. So what is the legal sanctity for the resolution passed by Metaverse in the international arena? If by chance the resolution is questioned in the court of law, what and how can it get a positive answer? Okay, so like I think my first question is, I'm not sure that some of the things in the question, maybe I don't understand fully, yet exist. So I'm not sure there is such a thing as a resolution that's passed by the metaverse in the international arena. But insofar as you mean, say, like, what if you have an award that relates to the metaverse? And is that award going to be enforceable? Say that's your example. I think all of the normal rules would apply. Like, does the award have like a legal seat? Was due process met in the dispute resolution process? So and like part of my presentation goes more, I don't think we'll be able to cover it today, but I go into blockchain arbitration and like particular features of the dispute resolution process and some blockchain arbitration applications, and whether those issues could raise enforcement challenges. So I cover some of those. So some of the interesting issues I think arise, for example, the UK digital dispute resolution rules allow the parties to be anonymous vis-a-vis each other, and that's to reflect the fact that when you transact virtually, you may not be using your real name, you may be using an avatar or just a handle. So if you can be anonymous in your real life, in your virtual life, why can't you also be anonymous in any legal proceedings? And a question that gives rise to for me is that how could that work if you needed to enforce an award at the court, and typically the courts require you to both disclose your own identity as well as the identity of the counterparty. I hope that helps to make your point, to answer your question, Vijaya.